Goblin Slayer is a notoriously dark and violent fantasy light novel and manga that recently had its anime series debut, and the outrage addicts are up in arms over its so-called problematic aspects. Let's take a look at what they have to say. Well, Goblin Slayer is well and truly repugnant. Didn't think I'd see a show out-edge magical girl site, but this takes the cake. Feels like it was written by a 14-year-old. I suppose he'd know all about what 14-year-olds are into, since that transgender version of himself that he calls a girlfriend appeals to that market with her grotesque bastardizations of anime cosplay. I'm really on the fence with Goblin Slayer. I'm really getting over the rape culture being thrown at us over and over again. It's never necessary. The same people who want real women to come forward with their stories of actual rape don't ever want to hear about fictional instances of it. You know, if we just taught goblins not to rape, this wouldn't be a problem. Goblin Slayer is disgusting. Fuck that anime. If he thinks an anime that portrays rape for the horrible act it is disgusting, you really have to call into question his personal interests. Goblin Slayer Episode 1 is out. How about no? Yikes. Yikes is that word you say when you have nothing of value to contribute, but you still want to point out someone else's supposed moral failing just so you can feel superior. Goblin Slayer is literally senseless rape. They could have tore her limb from limb to make the evil point. Tearing a woman limb from limb? Totally okay. Woman being raped by evil monsters? Well, now you've just gone too far. He even calls it senseless rape, so I guess he prefers the purposeful kind? Just make your rape meaningful, and this guy will be right there to support you. Jesus fucking Christ, burn these people at the stake. Burning people at the stake for enjoying a dark fantasy series. That's a very current year take. Hey, since Goblin Slayer is out, some PSAs. 1. Massive trigger warning for sexual assault. 2. Don't watch Goblin Slayer. Translation. This series offends my fragile sensibilities, so that means that you shouldn't watch it either. Huh. I didn't even have to use Google Translate for that one. Hey Crunchyroll. Hey, you know how you'll put a warning mature content page before titty shows? Maybe do that for the show this season feature an on-screen rape scene. Just a suggestion. Content warning for Goblin Slayer BTW. Imagine expecting Crunchyroll to do anything right. People keep saying on-screen rape scene, but they actually cut away before they show anything. I do not want to meet anyone who thinks this is acceptable content or enjoyed it. The rape could have been easily implied when the priest came back with help, but no. We, the audience, were forced to watch. I would have been fine with just them chopping the party up without the rape. Here we go again, claiming that you're forced to watch rape. They cut away. The rape is heavily implied because they cut away and you don't see any penetration, but they give you enough to know exactly what's happening. People are oddly selective when it comes to what horrific acts it's acceptable to portray in fiction. It's amazing how it's perfectly okay by this guy's standards to chop people into pieces and brutally murder them. But rape, somehow, just goes too far. Being murdered is about as final as it gets. But wait, there's more. Hey, at Team YouTube, I'm just make a suggestion. Flag, demonetize, or remove videos of anyone who uploads a live reaction to the first episode of Goblin Slayer because there is some very not safe content we don't want the kids getting into. That's right, he's calling in Big Brother YouTube to censor everyone for him, all because he can't handle the idea that there's a dark fantasy out there where actual monsters commit terrible acts upon their prey. Of course, when I pointed out how ridiculous of a request this is, I was met with a very predictable response. The issue with Goblin Slayer is not that it glorifies rape. Anyone who claims this as the main objection is making a straw man argument. The issue with Goblin Slayer is that it glorifies genocide. And that is a take so spicy that I need a glass of milk. This guy knows goblins aren't real, right? No one watches this and is then inspired to enact a real-life genocide. What exactly would be the alternative in this fantasy world? Should the Goblin Slayer become the Goblin Prayer instead and join hands with them to form prayer circles? Should they have a tea party and bring peace to human and goblin kind alike? It's very obvious that goblins are out for blood. The whole point is that it's a kill or be killed situation, and if your life is in danger, guess whose takes precedence? I'm not a snowflake. I can take a joke, dark humor is okay, but when you're almost physically showing rape in a show, I don't feel okay about it. That's disgusting. I don't approve of Goblin Slayer. It's nasty and should never have aired. I'm not a snowflake, as he proceeds to act like one and claim a show shouldn't be available just because he doesn't like it, rather than, you know, just not watching it. If you have to preface your comment like that, chances are the shoe fits. Now, I have done you a service here and saved the absolute best for last. Are you ready to get woke on the GQ? The goblin question? They're just filthy creatures that need to be purged is a chilling sentence to read, especially when goblins as an archetype often take from Jewish stereotypes so much. Damn those goblins and their control of the media, Hollywood, and their plot for the collapse of modern society. This is one of the dumbest things I've ever seen. The only thing you'll find where people are comparing goblins to Jews is the Harry Potter incarnation of them, and it's mostly people being outraged because they see parallels to stereotypes. But obviously these goblins are much newer in comparison to their folklore origins. Goblins have absolutely nothing to do with Jews. If you look at goblins and you think of Jews, maybe, just maybe, you're projecting your own beliefs onto others.
Ew, I like them. I like goblins.
These are people that clearly don't understand fiction, conflict, you name it. If it's outside of their little bubble, they can't process it as anything other than that which needs to be erased. The whole purpose of villains, regardless of their motivation, is that they're there to do bad things and battle the heroes. Featuring horrible actions in your story is not an endorsement of said actions. That's just absurd. And if that was the case, why is it okay to kill people in fantasy? Why is it okay to do anything at all? Because someone somewhere just might get offended. They have really weird standards for where they draw the line. For people who believe that media has such a massive influence on people's actual lives, you'd think they wouldn't mind that a fantasy story depicts rape as a terrible thing, because by their own logic, it should teach people that it's not something you're supposed to do. Their arguments against featuring rape actually just go to show why featuring it in this context displays just how terrible these monsters are, because they'd rather have fictional characters be brutally murdered than raped, thus demonstrating that in their minds, rape is even worse, which is the whole point of using it as a plot device, to disturb you, to make you feel like goblins are the absolute worst of creatures that have no regard for anything but their own survival and instincts, and to sympathize with why the Goblin Slayer wants these creatures dead. All these people are so concerned with criticizing the idea of using rape that they forgot to ask the most important question of all. Just what the fuck are all the characters' real names?